The shop had no name. That was the first strange thing Ethan noticed about it, or rather, the first strange thing he noticed after he finally saw it. Because it wasn't a place people usually noticed. It sat quietly between a narrow bookstore and a closed tailor shop on a street he had walked down hundreds of times before. Yet somehow, in all those years, he had never seen it. The window was slightly dusty, the glass faintly fogged from the inside, as if the room beyond it was warmer than the cold air outside. A soft golden light glowed through the haze, not bright enough to draw attention, but steady enough to feel inviting. Ethan stopped walking. He wasn't sure why. He hadn't planned to stop. He had been heading home from work, his mind cluttered with unfinished tasks and tomorrow's responsibilities. But something about that window made him pause, as if an invisible hand had gently tugged at him. He stepped closer. Inside the display window were small objects arranged on dark wooden shelves. At first glance, they looked like glass ornaments. Smooth spheres, crystal-like droplets, tiny glowing fragments resting on velvet cloth. But as Ethan leaned in, he noticed something strange. They weren't just glowing, they were moving. Inside one small sphere, something flickered. He squinted, trying to see more clearly. For a brief moment, he thought he saw a person running, a child, maybe, before the image blurred and disappeared into soft light again. Ethan blinked. He stepped back, suddenly unsure of what he'd just seen. Was it a screen, some kind of projection? But there were no wires. No devices, no signs of modern technology. Just glass, and light. Before he could stop himself, his hand reached for the door. A small bell rang as he pushed it open. Warmth wrapped around him instantly. Not the dry warmth of a heater, but something softer. Comforting, like stepping into a familiar place he couldn't quite remember. The air smelled faintly of old wood and something sweet, like tea and rain. The shop was quiet, not silent, quiet. A low, gentle hum filled the room, almost like distant whispers layered over one another. It wasn't loud enough to understand, just present enough to notice. The walls were lined with shelves from floor to ceiling. Hundreds of glass objects rested on them. Some glowed faintly, others shone brightly, a few pulsed slowly, like they were breathing. Ethan stepped further inside, the door closing softly behind him. "Welcome." The voice was calm, warm, close. He turned. A woman stood behind a wooden counter near the back of the room. She looked older, though it was hard to guess her age. Her dark hair was tied back loosely, and her eyes held a strange kind of softness, the kind that made you feel like she already knew who you were. She smiled. "Looking for something you lost?" she asked. Ethan let out a small nervous laugh. "I don't think so. I was just passing by. People who are just passing by don't usually come in." He shrugged. "I saw the lights. That happens." He didn't know how to respond to that. His eyes wandered back to the shelves. There were so many of them. Each object was unique. Some looked like drops of frozen rain. Others like smooth marbles filled with mist. A few were shaped like tiny bottles, sealed with silver caps. And each one held light. "Are these for sale?" Ethan asked. "In a way," the woman said. He stepped closer to a nearby shelf. One small sphere caught his attention. Inside it, a faint golden glow shimmered like sunlight on water. "What are they?" he asked quietly. The woman walked over, her steps slow and steady. She picked up the sphere carefully, holding it in her palm as if it were fragile. "This," she said, "as a memory." Ethan frowned. "A memory?" She nodded. Inside the sphere, the light shifted. Ethan leaned closer. He could see something now, a shape. A scene. A young boy running through tall grass. His laughter echoed faintly, distant but clear enough to feel real. The sky above him was bright blue. The sun warm. The wind moved through the field in soft waves. It looked alive. Ethan's chest tightened. "That's not a video," he said slowly. "No. How is it moving like that?" The woman looked at him. "Would you like to hold it?" Ethan hesitated. Something about the sphere made him nervous. It looked delicate, important, like it shouldn't belong in his hands. But curiosity won. He reached out. The moment his fingers touched the glass, the world disappeared. There was no shop, no shelves, no hum, just sunlight. He stood in the middle of the field. The air was warm. The grass brushed against his legs. He could hear the wind clearly now. Feel it against his skin. The boy ran past him, laughing loudly, chasing something invisible. A dog barked in the distance. Someone called the boy's name, a woman's voice, gentle and full of love. It felt real, too real. Ethan looked down at his hands. They looked the same, but he wasn't just watching. He was there. The boy tripped and fell into the grass, laughing harder. The sun shone brighter. The sky stretched endlessly above. Then, just as suddenly as it began, it ended. The shop returned. Ethan stumbled slightly, catching himself against the shelf. His heart was racing. What was that? He whispered. The woman gently took the sphere back from him and placed it carefully on the shelf. A memory, she said. A real one. Exactly as it happened. Ethan ran a hand over his face, trying to steady himself. I could feel it, he said. The wind, the sun, I heard everything. Yes, that wasn't like watching something. It was like I was there. You were, she said softly. He stared at the shelves again, this time with a completely different feeling. How many of these are there? He asked. Thousands. And they all belong to someone. She nodded. People bring them here. Some do, she said. Some don't know they've left them. Ethan didn't understand that, but he didn't ask. Instead, his eyes moved slowly across the glowing collection. Each one held a moment. A birthday, a goodbye, a laugh, a quiet afternoon. Pieces of lives. Why keep them? He asked. The woman looked at the shelves. Because memories fade, she said. People forget faces, voices, the way a moment felt. These help them remember. Ethan swallowed. A sudden thought hit him. Can anyone make one? The woman studied him for a moment. Do you have a memory you're afraid of losing? She asked gently. He opened his mouth to answer. But no words came out. Because suddenly, without warning, a face had appeared in his mind. His mother, standing in their old kitchen. Smiling, laughing, the sound of her voice, the smell of fresh bread, the warmth of her hug, and for the first time in years, he realized something that made his chest ache. The details were fading. Her voice wasn't as clear anymore. Her smile felt distant, like a photograph left too long in the sun. His eyes filled with tears before he even realized it. The woman didn't say anything. She didn't need to. She simply reached beneath the counter and brought out a small, empty sphere. It was clear, still, waiting. She placed it gently in front of him. Soon, she said quietly, the world will learn how to keep every moment. Ethan stared at the empty glass. And for the first time, he understood. This shop wasn't selling objects. It was holding pieces of people's lives. And somehow, he knew this was only the beginning.